The stark reality following the Horus Heresy is that the Salamanders' immediate inability to produce any successor chapters was a consequence of the unimaginable devastation they had both suffered during the Dropsite Massacre and in the ensuing conflict within their homeworld. Their numbers were simply too reduced and their lineage too weakened for the traditional division of the Legion into multiple chapters. Consequently, Vulcan's initial misgivings about the Codex were set aside by not only his brothers, but by the Imperium at large. And to this day, the Salamanders maintain compliance with the Codex's dictates, preserving the singular chapter structure. However, they do deviate, yet despite the adherence to the Codex's overall structure, the Salamanders continue to honor the organizational traditions of the Legion as it was prior to the Horus Heresy, with 7 warrior houses of the Legion remaining central in the structure of the Salamanders Chapter, with each great settlement of Nocturne forming the basis of one of these 7 main companies. That, along with the fact that the chapter maintains a scout company, unique in that it possesses no permanent settlements, as instead, the aspirants to the chapter reside in the harsh, mountainous terrain of Nocturne, training under the extreme conditions until they are ready to properly join the warrior house as they are reborn as full battle brothers. While each line company slightly exceeds the standard Codex-compliant numbers, the Scout Company is notably smaller than almost any of their kin, including that of the Flesh Terrors, which is an achievement in and of itself. Instead, these aspirants are in a company barely half the size of similar companies in other chapters. This is a consequence of both the harsh conditions alongside the sparse population of Nocturne and the Salamander's own rather meticulous training program. Due to this, despite its limitations, this method has provided a slow, steady, and consistent replenishment of warriors, ensuring the chapter endures, tempered by both adversity and communal suffering, meanwhile remaining capable of maintaining its strength for whatever trials the galaxy may send to them. The ultimate fate of the Salamander's Primarch remains one of the most consistently argued about, closely guarded secrets of the Imperium, as it sparks debate across Terran history, from Nocturne all the way to Terra. As following the conclusion of the Horus Heresy, Vulcan's presence continued to shape and form his legion into a greater version of itself. Yet eventually he would vanish from recorded history, leaving behind no declared mission and no witness testimony. Only fragmented evidence hint about his current whereabouts. Some accounts suggest that Vulcan led the Salamanders Chapter for as long as 3 millennia, guiding his warriors with characteristic foresight and vigilance, alongside his unshakable, unquestionable compassion. Yet despite the details of his actions during this age, many of the records have been lost or fragmented due to both the hazards of Imperial record keeping and the more vile members of the Imperium potentially seeing the legitimacy of a Primarch such as Vulcan and his legion deviating so much from the Ecclesiarchy's stated belief system that they believed he had to be erased as much as possible. Yet the details of his actions remain as echoes. The uncertainty surrounding his later life only deepens his legacy, specifically what he left behind. A carefully crafted corpus known as the Tome of Fire. Within this compendium, Vulcan encoded the location and the purpose of 9 sacred artifacts. Each he willed to the chapter. According to the Tome of Fire, more than 1,000 standard years after the Horus Heresy, Vulcan disappeared with these very relics, and they were strewn across a galaxy as a deliberate trial for the chapter's worthiness. Of the 9, 5 have been recovered by the chapter. Amongst these are the Spear of Vulcan, Carsey's Mantle, the Gauntlet of the Forge, all of which are wielded by the chapter's Forge Father, Vulcan Isstvan. 2 others, the Chalice of Fire and the Eye of Vulcan, remain safeguarded upon Prometheus, Nocturne's moon, within the chapter's Fortress Monastery. The remaining 4, the Engine of Woes, the Obsidian Chariot, Unbound Flame, and the Song of Entropy, have yet to be discovered, their locations shrouded in secrecy. However, there are some who believe that these legendary relics may be in the possession of some of the most dangerous foes of humanity, making the Salamander's quest to retrieve them all that more pressing. The Tome of Fire also declares that only when all 9 artifacts are recovered by the Forge Father will Vulcan deem the Salamanders sufficiently tempered, passing the ultimate test of loyalty, skill, resilience, and nobility. This goes on to state that according to the legend, this event will herald Vulcan's return to lead the chapter in a final war against humanity's foes, fulfilling the prophecies preserved in the most sacred texts of the Salamanders. With the opening of the Great Rift and the onset of the Era Indomitus, the Salamander's duty has never been clearer. In this era of unparalleled hardship for the Imperium, the chapter has borne the brunt of countless campaigns, acting as both a bulwark and a sword for those threatened by the fires of war. These trials have been rather costly for the chapter, in no small part due to the slow pace of recruitment combined with the Salamander's almost pathological commitment to others, placing an immense strain on the chapter itself. Yet it is a burden that they accept with nary a complaint. For the Sons of Vulcan, these challenges are merely a crucible, one which will be used to yield a more solid form of the steel of their souls. They endure, confident that from the inferno of struggle, they will emerge stronger than ever before, honed by adversity and made ready to meet the day when their primarch and the full power of the Salamanders returns. And when they return, they believe that they will shape the Imperium's destiny. The centuries following the Horus Heresy proved to be no less perilous for the Salamanders, as they now navigated a galaxy fraught not just with mortal threats, but with ecclesiastical ones as well. Their actions during the Age of Apostasy and the Age of Redemption highlight the Legion's commitment to the protection of civilians, and by that, the Imperium itself, often placing themselves at odds with the more zealous adherents to the Imperial cult. One such example of this would occur during M36. In this conflict, the Salamanders prioritized the safety of innocents over the dictates of the Ecclesiarchy, drawing the ire of Arch-Cardinal Brengio, the right hand to the pathetic tyrant Gouge Vandar, who declared the Promethean cult as heretical. Brengio marshaled 3 orders of Sisters of Battle alongside a massive, nigh uncountable contingent of ecclesiarchal forces in order to hunt down 5 Salamanders companies on the world of New Folly. Initially, the chapter fought only to defend themselves, but as assault upon assault rained down upon the hive cities of New Folly, they were drawn out into open combat. Fortunately, news of Brengio's assassination by the Inquisition arrived just in time to disperse the pursuing forces before the brouhaha got out of control, sparing the Salamanders from a prolonged conflict with the Imperium itself. Up next would be the fires of Phaistos Osiris, occurring in 533 M39, upon the cardinal world of Phaistos Osiris, which was a linchpin of the Osirian sector and the home of the revered Basilica of Saint Thoth the Intercessor, and it would come under attack from a threat of a massive orc incursion led by Ruckrippa. The Salamanders deployed all 7 companies in order to spearhead the planet's defense, combining disciplined militia from the Scholia Progenium with hundreds of thousands of volunteer pilgrims, employing a strategy of intricate defense through depth. The Salamanders would then manipulate the orcs' homicidal rage, forcing them into traps of their own making. In orbit, the chapter's fleet, supported by Battlefleet Ultima, launched a precision strike against the orcs' Death Hulks, while elite squads of Fire Drake Terminators conducted teleport raids aboard the Hulks, planting seismic charges and ripping them apart in controlled nuclear-level detonations. On the surface, the Salamanders countered the final orc assault on the main temple city, aided by fanatical redemptionist self-termination squads. Promethean would flood the avenues of the city, as it would then be ignited by the Salamanders. Shortly after this, the Salamanders would strike proper, with fire drakes ascending from above as the chapter's main force would assault on foot, annihilating the WAAAGH in a blazing inferno so large it was visible from orbit. This was a testament to the chapter's tactical mastery and their preference of flame-based assaults. Later in 793 M40, on the hive world of WAAAGH, the Dark Eldar would unleash one of their most insidious horrors. A coven of Haemonculi had released a biotoxin that dissolved human flesh while leaving the Eldar unharmed. Observing this spectacle from atop hive spires through high-powered scrying arrays, the Salamanders, upon learning of this atrocity, dispatched one of their strike cruisers to excise these corrupted regions. Stormraven gunships deployed a rather well-armed siege-breaker cohort to the upper levels of the hives, where the warriors' internal air supplies replaced their standard rebreathers. Even as the toxins ate away at their flesh and the structural integrity of their power armor, the Salamanders fought on. War suits, now empty of living hosts, would continue to move under the fury of their bound machine spirits, culminating in the last two operative suits reaching the Haemonculi lair, expending all their munitions, destroying not only the Dark Eldar warriors but the twisted scientists who had created this abomination before falling dormant. Through the centuries, the Salamanders have proved their devotion to humanity and their chapter far beyond mere survival, as they have fought on to uphold the nobility of human life, even when confronted by both mortal and inhuman horrors. These are just nary a handful of incidents during both the Age of Apostasy and the Age of Redemption where the Salamanders' greatest features shined through, as their status would be further solidified as the Imperium's bulwark, tempered by fire and tested by blood. In the final centuries of M41, long after Vulcan had vanished, humanity was in the time of ceaseless, relentless conflict. For the Salamanders, it was their unwavering duty to defend humanity with their utmost devotion, and this brought them to the forefront of the Imperium's most dangerous engagements. Deeds during this period illustrate both the perils faced by mankind and the unique roles the Sons of Vulcan played in safeguarding the galaxy. Purging the moons of Yamargi in the time of 754 through 756 M41. This was due to the Edict of the High Lords of Terra, implementing a much more harsh series of operations against suspected gene stealer infestations. Here the Salamanders were tasked with the arduous mission of purging this Xenos infestation from the moons of Yamardi, long considered the cradle of this alien menace. In this theater, this chapter would endure staggering casualties, yet through the storms of Prometheum and the devastating impact of Thunderhammers, the Space Marines methodically eradicated the gene stealer threat, down to the last genome. For nearly 2 standard Terran years, the campaign unfolded amidst both darkness and death, until finally the Magos Biologists of the Adeptus Mechanicus pronounced the ancient menace upon the moon fully vanquished. Despite this victory, the shadow of Yamari's legacy and the losses to the chapter lingered within the derelict ships, aboard space hulks, and countless worlds already scarred by the alien menace's infestation. The next major incident of galactic import that the Salamanders would take a part in occurred in 761 M41, when Warpsmith Soulsmiter brought a horde of demon engines to the Great Crucible of Nocturne. Here the Salamanders Chapter Master would authorize the opening of the Chapter Master's reliquaries, which included dozens upon dozens of meticulously crafted meltaguns, relic blades, and thunderhammers that were entrusted to the elite veterans within the Fire Drakes, each warrior swearing solemn oaths to honor the weapon's machine spirits through deeds of destruction. As they would be deployed aboard a dozen Stormraven gunships, the Fire Drakes would then descend upon the demon engines with unmatched ferocity, now wielding technology that was very well suspected to have been crafted by their gene sire. Hammer strikes and melta-blasts tore through the metallic monstrosities, while the accompanying Stormwing squadrons hunted the Soul Smiter himself, finally bringing the Warpsmith low, his body severed from its mechadendrils, and then mercilessly, and quite justly, riddled with gunfire until there was nothing left. Then the remaining pulp and meat juices would be launched into orbit ceremoniously straight into Nocturne's sun, as a final farewell and a warning to all those who attempt. Then, in a completely separate engagement, in 772 M41, Forge Father Vulcan Isstvan reclaimed the Gauntlet of Fire after defeating a war host of Eldar pirate Loth Bloodweaver, cementing his role as a chapter's living heir to Vulcan's legacy. Then would come the Lycanthos Drift campaign, occurring between 780 and 810 M41. During the closing stages of the Fourth Quadrant Rebellion, the Salamanders joined the Imperium's war efforts to reclaim one of Chaos's final bastions upon the material realm. Operating under Lufthuren of the Astral Claws, the chapter coordinated with elements of the Firehawks, the White Scars, and the Celestial Guard, all the while being supported by Imperial Guard regiments from Kalsek and the Death Corps of Krieg, as well as God engines from Legio Venictor. Over 2 decades of grueling warfare, the Salamanders helped secure the sector, culminating in the fall of Lycanthos Secundus into the Imperial fold. This led to bonds of brotherhood being forged throughout the campaign, which would resonate for decades to come, and culminate with the coming of the Badab War, which forced the Salamanders to act as mediators and combatants alike. In 878 M41, Forge Father Isstvan faced the Necron overlord Trazyn the Infinite in personal combat, all to protect the Spear of Vulcan from being claimed by the ancient Xenos Collector. The confrontation ended in Isstvan's triumph, preserving both the relic and the chapter's honor. Later would come the legendary and the rather unfortunate Badab War, occurring between 906 through 912 M41. Here the Salamanders would be drawn reluctantly into the internecine conflict of the Badab War, serving the Imperium against the renegade Astral Claws. Though initially hesitant, the chapter acted upon proof provided by the prosecuting Legiste Inquisitor, confirming the Astral Claws' betrayal, and in so they would send a single battle company, the second company under Captain Pelas Mirsan, as they were already heavily committed to another warfront. Despite their small numbers, the Salamanders engaged fiercely, influencing several pivotal points in the preceding events and maintaining the Imperium's tactical advantage. Then, in 938 M41, Tushan ascended to the role as regent of Prometheus, following the violent death of his predecessor at the hands of Huron Blackheart, who had at that time become the renegade Chaos Lord of the Red Corsairs, marking a veritable new chapter in the Salamanders' long and storied history. The Second War for Armageddon would be next, occurring between 941 and 961 M41. Under Tushan's command, the Salamanders distinguished themselves during the Second War for Armageddon. Amongst numerous feats, one company defended the River Stygius Bridge from a 1,000-strong Orc Speed Freaks force, safeguarding the critical water infrastructure to Hive Tempestora. While the Hive city would ultimately fall, their efforts established a safe evacuation route, preserving countless lives. Beyond the battlefield, the Salamanders excelled in vital yet underappreciated tasks, in particular, protecting the supply convoys, conducting rearguard actions, and escorting refugees to safety. The steadfast service earned the gratitude of thousands, from Imperial Guardsmen to civilian alike. In a notable engagement, Chapter Master Tushan and his fire drakes held back an overwhelming Orc force for days on end, a display of valor so profound that the legendary Commander Dante of the Blood Angels publicly commended Tushan before the assembled Imperial forces, a rare and rather supreme honor amongst the Adeptus Astartes, one that would later grow into a continuing friendship between the Salamanders and their vampiric kin. Through the time of ending, the Salamanders proved themselves to be one of the Imperium's most reliable shields, their willingness to protect humanity unwavering even amidst the countless trials directed upon them from the depths. In the last waning vestiges of the 41st millennium, the Salamanders would continue to prove themselves as the true vigilant shield of the Imperium, bearing the burden that few others could. Their campaigns during this period are chronicled in both chapter records and scattered Imperial testimonies, revealing a mixture of heroism, tragedy, and an unshakable will. One such event would be the Torchan Crusade, occurring around 943 M41, when the Necron overlord Trajan the Infinite claimed to have located the long-lost Song of Entropy, one of the missing relics of Vulcan, a claim which proved to be not but a cunning ruse designed to ensnare Forge Father Vulcan Isstvan. During the ensuing assault of Torchcan, the Necron forces of Tomb World Salamanders sought both the spear of Vulcan and the death of its current bearer. The Salamanders' 6th Company responded with defiance, as bolters and flamers blazed amidst the cold metallic rank of the Necrons. 40 battle brothers would fall in the struggle, but Isstvan ultimately prevailed, leaving the battle littered with countless permanently destroyed Necron forms, and the chapter was therefore left victorious, yet bloodied. Up next would be the Killianeth Rebellion, occurring in 955 M41. Amidst the chaos of the rebellion, Chapter Master Tashan faced mortal danger when a rebel Hellhound Flamer tank engulfed his position in a sheet of burning promethium. The insurgents' cheers quickly turned to utterances of horror as Tushan emerged from the inferno, seemingly impervious to flame, and struck down the Hellhound with a single devastating blow from his legendary and powerful Thunderhammer. Witnesses report that the rebels fled in abject fear, undone by the sight of the fire-wraithed primarch's heir. Later would come the assault on Moribar, where the Salamanders' 3rd Company under Captain Khotan Kadiai pursued the deranged former captain of the Black Dragons, Vaitan Ushrank, and a warband of Chaos Space Marines on the ash-blanketed cemetery world of Moribar. The battle raged throughout the Cementeria and the crypts as Urshuk sought forbidden secrets beneath the planet's sepulchres. Ultimately, Urshuk was cast into the central furnace of the world, while the loyal librarian Nihilan attempted to save his mentor, only to be horribly burned. Barely surviving from these ashes, Nalihan rose as a chaos sorcerer, forming the Dragon Warriors, a warband of heretic Astartes dedicated to vengeance against the Salamanders and Nocturne as a whole. And he would later orchestrate the downfall of Captain Kodiai on Stratos as a rather well-calculated act of reprisal. Following this would be the Sokorian Prophecy, which occurred in 962 M41. Using intelligence gathered from the recovered derelict Adeptus Mechanicus forge ship Archimedes Rex, the 3rd Company journeyed to Socoria, where they discovered the remnants of the Imperium's 154th Expeditionary Fleet, 50 suits of ancient power armor, and Gravis, the oldest living salamander and a survival of the Dropsite Massacre. The company had captured an Iron Warrior's fortress, but soon faced overwhelming orc assaults. Displaying no small amount of ingenuity, the Fireborn utilized their downed strike cruiser's main guns to repel the Green Tide, forming a ramshackle, heavy gun emplacement. Though ultimately they would be rescued by a strike cruiser of the Marines' Malevolent. Thanks to the previous tensions, the chapters created no small amount of friction during this event. During the campaign, Captain Nihilan was allegedly slain by an orc commando team. Nihilan was sighted in the area but escaped, carrying with him a seismic cannon, a weapon of apocalyptic potential, now, unfortunately, in the hands of Chaos. Dissension followed the return to Nocturne, as multiple failures and the loss of their captain weighed heavily upon the 3rd Company. Eventually, the Salamanders would have to take part in the Stratos campaign, where they would spearhead the liberation of Sirion, the floating capital of the mining world of Stratos. There, a small cadre of dragon warriors, led by Chaos Sorcerer Nihilan, orchestrated an uprising of the so-called Cult of Truth, using this as a distraction to recover the artifact known as the Decipherex from the city's depths. Responding swiftly to Stratos' astropathic distress signals, the Salamanders intervened, only to witness Nihilan personally extract vengeance by orchestrating the death of Captain Khotan Kodiai, a revered officer whose previous actions on Moribur had directly claimed the Chaos Sorcerer's leader's life. In the last few closing decades of M41, the Salamanders endured some of their most relentless campaigns, standing as both guardians and avengers across countless war zones. Wreathed in fire and bathed in flame, each engagement tested the limits of their courage, ingenuity, and their devotion to humanity, as their deeds would be recorded in the many scattered history books of the Imperium's countless worlds. Here would occur the defense of Nocturne in 975 M41, when the Salamanders unified in full force to defend Nocturne and its moon Prometheus against the heretical dragon warriors led by Chaos Sorcerer Nihilin. Following the death of his old adversary, Captain Kodai, Nihilin enlisted the aid of a warband of iron warriors to mine the rare Frey ore from Scoria. During this time, the Chaos Sorcerer entered a demonic pact with Enshulka, enhancing his psychic powers to depths he'd never dreamed of. Gaining access to forbidden knowledge, Keely the secrets of the ancient Nocturnian corpse masters. Capable of resurrecting the dead, Nihilin sought to return his former master back to life, the renegade Black Dragon's chaplain, Victan Ushrok. Well, rather than life, he would come to unlife. In exchange, the demon would be granted a host body, manifesting in the material realm as a demon host, sowing chaos amongst the Salamanders for as long as it could. Nihilin deployed the seismic cannon, which had been safely stored aboard his ship that had been previously stolen, as the Chaos Cruiser Hellstalker burrowed a shaft straight into the depths of Mount Deathfire and into the sacred heart of Nocturne. There he breached the hidden shrine containing one of Vulcan's many lost relics, the Tome of Fire. Here he would be confronted by his former pupil, Epistolary Pyreal, in a psychic duel that ended with Pyreal's death, a costly yet crucial sacrifice. Soon after, Chief Librarian Velcorna arrived to confront Nihilin within the very depths of the mountain itself. Though Vihilra destroyed Nihilin's bodyguard, Remlek, the Chaos Sorcerer escaped. His hopes for reviving his former master and now near obsession temporarily dashed, but yet his goal undiminished. His current whereabouts remain unknown. However, the ghost of the threat that he poses to the Salamanders still remains in full. Following this would be the Promethean War occurring in 980 M41. On the Ecclesiarchy's world of Helestian, the Salamanders 6th Company, commanded by Captain Uzrang Drakgard and reinforced by the 4th Company's assault squads, waged a bitter war of attrition against the Black Legion and the Children of Torment, and they would ally briefly with the Order of the Ebon Chalice. The Salamanders and the Imperial forces executed a successful breakthrough, yet the Sisters of Battle would go on to abandon their allies in order to pursue undisclosed agendas, turning what would be a victory into a chaotic rout. Then, during 989 M41, the 3rd Company deployed upon the death world of Mainz, reinforcing the Catachan regiments stationed there, the Black Snakes, against a tendril of High Fleet Leviathan. Over the following weeks of grueling, unending combat, the Salamanders and their Astra Militarum allies reduced swaths of Mayas to ashes and cinder before finally purging this Xenos threat entirely. Following this would be the Blood Purge Crusade in 989 M41. And once again, the Salamanders would end up in an alliance with another friend from the Imperium. This time it was the Ironhawk, where both would have to work closely together to strike at the corrupted shrine world of Lamath's Hope, defeating the demonic legions of Krorar Seth. Following the death of this demon, the Salamanders completed the cleansing rituals and purged the world of all corruption by fire, withdrawing once the task was fully complete. Then would come the Third War for Armageddon in 998 M41, when Orc warlord Gazgul Mag Uruk-Draka launched a new offensive on Armageddon. The Salamanders were amongst the first to respond, and all 7 companies would be fully deployed, with Chapter Master Thushan leading his own elite 1st Company, the Fire Drakes. The Salamanders assaulted rock forts alongside the Hemlock River, preferring close quarters combat within the mazes of these crude tunnels, rather than the open-range engagement which many of the other Imperial forces much preferred. At least 3 rocks were destroyed, slaying around 1,000 orcs in short order. Unlike many of the chapters who in this great war sought glory or redemption, the Salamanders primarily focused on saving and preserving the lives of as many civilians as possible, as they openly challenged a captain of the Marines Malevolent who had abandoned civilians to die and rather used them as bait in order to trap orcs in a brutal pincer. Though the bulk of the chapter would withdraw after Ghazghul's retreat, 2 companies remained to guard key population centers, fighting through the season of fire, while others could not due to their own divergent physiology. In one notable instance, a squad of fire drakes departed for Baal, serving as the Blood Angels' honor guard for the fallen Captain Erasmus Tycho, and they did this in full military regalia and force in order to ensure the nun maintained the procession of their fallen friend's funeral. This has been one of the many instances where the Salamanders' long-lasting friendship and the loyalty they feel towards the Blood Angels was openly shown. As the galaxy plunged deeper into the Era Indomitus, the Imperium faced a tide of threats, both alien and heretical. Amongst the most vibrant of defenders were the Salamanders, who exemplified their service through courage, resilience, and the unyielding will of their primarch. Their deeds during this period would mark them as both saviors and martyrs for the cause of the Imperium, as in the Largos System, the warp storms emerging from the Great Rift brought forth a maelstrom of death uncountable. From the storms materialized bloodthirster Ghazghul and his Rage Legion, intent on unending slaughter and the enslavement of the rather dense population across this system, only to be stopped by the Salamanders deploying at full chapter strength. And they arrived to halt the massacre. Waves of repulsor tanks smashed through the walls of the blood factories, followed by Primaris aggressor squads who seemed to almost have been tailor-designed to be used by the Salamanders, as they purged the infernal installations with cleansing fire. Hive by hive, planet by planet, the Salamanders liberated those they could and extracted a toll of vengeance uncountable upon those lost, leaving a scorched testimony to their fury, as the legendary Bloodthirster would be forced back upon a pyre of fire unending. Veterans of this campaign bore numerous badges of service, some recalling prior conflicts against demons. Their vows were now reiterated and even changed. All Necrons would be destroyed, and demons would be cleansed forever from the materium. After this would come the Third War of Damnos. The world of Damnos would once again fall under siege, this time by the Necron Saskan dynasty. Overstretched, the Ultramarines had few Astartes to spare, leading to them having to send a small strike force, alongside regiments of Ultramar's Auxilia. Yet even their combined strength, bolstered by their successor chapters, the Iron Hounds, the Brazen Consuls, and the Liberators, they struggled to stem the tide of endless Necrons, who continued to arrive upon the planet via tomb ships and a Dolom Gate. It was only thanks to the timely arrival of the Salamanders and the White Scars that the tides were able to be shifted. Responding to the Ultramarines' call for aid, they joined the battle to reclaim Damnos for the Emperor, coordinated with a precision that only the closest of allies could dare to have, allowed their firepower to decisively hold back the tide, allowing the beleaguered world to push the Xenos out of their sector. From here, the Salamanders would be drawn into the Talledus War. During the Talledus War, Captain Pallas Mirsan of the Second Company commanded a demi-company of Salamanders in defiance in the defense of the Cardinal world of Benediction in the Virtus subsector. As the word-bearers closed upon the Grand Honorificum Cathedral City Complex, the main Cathedral City Complex, the faith of the Adeptus Mechanicus priests and the loyal citizens invoked a phenomenal psychic awakening. Skull-faced spirits of imperial dead emerged from the warp, encasing the cathedral city walls in a radiant power known as the Saint's Wall, banishing the demons that aided the word-bearers back into the immaterium. Seizing this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the Salamanders struck with full force, cutting down the divided enemy pushing through the bridge over the River Carmine and cutting the heretic forces in two. While the battle for Benediction had not been fully decided, the Wordbearers' assault had been repelled, and an uncountable amount of their forces, many of whom were veterans of the Long War, had been cut down, leaving the cathedral city in loyalist hands. Yet Dark Cardinal Cor Phaeron, commanding Chaos forces, remained unyielding in his designs for Benediction. As the Era Indomitus reaches its zenith, the Salamanders continue to save human lives as they live through the enduring principles instilled into the chapter by their primarch of courage in the face of insurmountable odds, steadfast loyalty to the Imperium, and the unshakable devotion to protect the innocent across the now warp-storm systems of both Imperium, Nihilus, and Sanctus, and against both Xenos and heretical threats. The chapter's legacy of fire and steel has persisted and become a veritable beacon of hope amidst a galaxy shattered by the shadow of chaos.